That's right, boys. That's the dog whistle. That means it's time for another episode of the Dawgmatic Sports podcast. We're resuming right where we left off last time in our review of the 2024 NFL Draft. Picking up with the NFC West. We're just going to jump straight into it. No BSing around. Let's get this going. So we're going to start with the San Francisco 49ers. They made an interesting decision to take Ricky Pearsall in the first round. I'll be honest, he was not in my first round category. I had him as like a mid round 2 kind of player. I mean, I think he's going to work well as a slot receiver in that offense. I just, I don't know. I'm not sold that he's worth a first round pick. Ronaldo Green, I mean, he's got some talent. He's a go-getter. Very, very feisty, so he'll probably get a decent amount of playing time. Dominic Puny is a bit of a work in progress at tackle. I think he can definitely develop in San Fran, probably as a maybe future replacement left tackle, but for now I would say right tackle. Malik Mustafa is pretty decent safety. Not my highest on the board in the 4th round, but you know, he'll be okay. He'll do his job. I really liked the pick for Isaac Guerendo in the 4th. You know, in terms of athletic ability, he is the top of the top. You know, top 0.1 percentile for running backs. And I mean, you've got a plethora of talent at the position at the 49ers, so he'll have time to actually develop the technique to add to his game. I also enjoy the Jacob Cowan pick in the 4th from Arizona. He's a pretty good wide receiver. Maybe not the top guy on my board at that point, but definitely top 3. So it's a good selection. He can contribute on offense his rookie year. Probably not going to be a ton, but definitely, especially if there's injuries in camp, he can carve himself out a role. I don't really see these other 2 making the roster. I guess Tatum has a chance, but it's not. I would expect him to be more of a practice squad player than anything. The Cardinals. Now, the Arizona Cardinals got Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 4. Anytime you can get the son of a Hall of Famer that plays the same position as that Hall of Famer, that just looks like a better version of that player when they came out of college, you got to do it. Everyone has Marvin Harrison as their top receiver on the board. I feel like him and Neighbors and O'Dunes are kind of all in the same tier, so I'm not as over the moon with Harrison as everyone else, but I still think he's a great player, and he's definitely going to give something Kyler Murray has been lacking ever since D-Hop left. Darius Robinson also in the 1st. I like Darius. I think he's going to carve himself out a good role throughout the year. I think early he might just be a situational pass rusher, but as the year goes on, he's going to just earn more and more snaps because he's that kind of player. He's definitely somebody that's going to be a 3-down player for them by the end of the year. Max Melton is another decent pick. He wasn't my highest ranked corner on the board at this point, but I like the skill set that he provides, and I think that he'll be he's a good addition to the secondary that they've been building out there in Arizona. I think he's going to fit their scheme better than maybe some of the other corners that were available were, and that's why they took him. Trey Benson, I love that pick. James Conner is getting, he's up there in years. He's, 29 now. I know he had his best year last year statistically, but I think adding Trey Benson, letting him come in, maybe take those third down snaps that James Conner doesn't really do, and then slowly but surely expand his role throughout the season. Trey Benson's going to be their number one running back as early as next year, I would say. Isaiah Adams, I'm not a big fan of the Illinois tackle / guard. He was not in my top 5 at the position when he was taken. I don't have a lot of faith in him. Maybe as a guard, he'll do all right, but for now, I'm not sold on him in the NFL. I also don't really enjoy the Tip Raymond selection, the tight end, also in the 3rd round. He's you get a guy, I think he only has 9 receptions last year. That's not, he's got the athletics to jump out the gym, but production at the tight end position is something I'm going to keep preaching. He just doesn't have it, even less so than the guy that the Giants took. He is purely a combine warrior, so we'll have to see if he can actually develop into a pass catcher in the NFL. I do think he's got great blocking technique and ability. So at the very, at worst case scenario, he's just an inline blocking tight end early in his career. They have Trey McBride. They don't really need to Ryman to be a pass catcher. He can just come in as a blocker, maybe, play action, run some routes, whatever he needs. There's a role for him. I definitely see that. I just don't think 3rd round is where I take that kind of player. They continue to add in the secondary with Elijah Jones and Dadrian Taylor-Demerson. I think Demerson is actually going to get more playing time than Jones is in this defense. I expect Demerson to probably earn a role somewhere in the more DB heavy packages before Elijah Jones does. I really enjoyed the Christian Jones pick out of Texas in the 5th round. I think he's actually got a better shot at playing tackle in the NFL than Adams does. So Adams probably slots inside, tries to compete for the right guard position, whereas Christian Jones is going to try to compete to earn right tackle duties. I don't think Tejuan Palmer or Jaden Davis end up making this roster. Maybe a practice squad, but I don't think either of them has the capabilities to just make a day 1 starting roster or a day 1 53-man. But a really good draft by the Cardinals here. They add a ton of starters and some really good depth to keep them to keep building what they've been building this past couple of years. Trying to rebuild around Kyler Murray, give him a chance to show he really is a franchise quarterback after giving him the contract. The LA Rams, one of my favorite drafts here. You get Jared Verse, 3rd overall edge. I'm not huge on Jared Verse, but I like adding him to what they already have on defense. And then you move back up in the 2nd round, get his running mate from Florida State, Braden Fisk. Those two prove that they have what it takes to work together and absolutely terrorize quarterbacks. So you add that to what they already had on that D-line, and it's one of the scariest D-lines in the NFC. The 49ers is better, but, that's still an outstanding defensive line. You got Blake Corum in the 3rd. Blake Corum was my RB1. Everyone says his size, whatever. Blake Corum is a dog. He is going to come in and he's going to outwork everybody. Just go watch I think it was the Penn State game last year where Harbaugh was suspended, where they literally, the second half, they didn't pass. They just ran Blake Corum over and over and over again. And at the end of the game, his head was cut open and bloody, and he just kept eating. He didn't care. That's the kind of guy you're getting with Blake Corum. A guy that's going to come in and grind you to death, and you are not going to outwork him. Also picked up Cameron Kinchens in the 3rd. I had him, I think, as my safety number 3, so that's great value for them. Picking him up in the end of the third here. Excellent playmaker. Expect to see him probably starting this year at safety for them as they kind of remodel their defense here in this early part of this draft. I'm expecting a ton of snaps from these guys on defense. Brennan Jackson, I'm not like a huge fan of. I think he'll probably come in as a situational edge, give some of these guys some rest on third down. Tyler Davis, another D tackle, probably just depth. I don't think he's going to see a ton of playing time. Joshua Carty, get a kicker. Always, if you can find a kicker, you need one. There's never a bad time to get a kicker. Jordan Whittington, I can actually see him making this roster. I don't think it's for sure. But worst case scenario, I see him as a practice squad player that might get called up in the event of injuries. The real gem I think they found really deep in the draft is Bo Lemire, Arkansas, the center. He is probably, I think he had him as my third center on the board in the draft. He fell all the way to the 6th round. He's outstanding calling the shots at center. I think that he will probably start for them, if not this year, next year. And then KT Leviston, I'm not huge on him, but he might. There's a chance he makes the roster as a depth piece. Now the Seattle Seahawks, I'm not huge on their draft. Byron Murphy II, first D tackle off the board, definitely a game changer. I'm not going to say he's a game wrecker yet. And you see how he performs in the NFL against better talent, but I like Byron Murphy II. I think he's a really good piece for them. Help them, especially against the run game. I think he's going to be a big boon. Christian Haynes is actually one of my favorite draft selections in the 3rd round. I think he's a day one starter, a mauler. He's going to absolutely increase their run production, depending on which running back they use. I know they've got 2 young ones. Tyrese Knight, I didn't really like that pick that much. He was not at the top of my list of selections there, of players available in the 4th round. So, I'm sure he'll probably, if not on defense, he'll definitely have a role on special teams. He's got that kind of talent. I just don't think he's not going to be contributing that much on defense. AJ Barner, he'll probably work out. He's not going to be a tight end 1, but maybe a tight end 2, tight end 3, come in on the heavy sets, decent blocking, can run some good routes. Pretty much nobody else down the board here gives me much hope. They take 2 Auburn corners, neither of which I had high on my board. I do kind of like the guard out of Utah. I think that Christian Hayes is obviously going to be the day one starter, but I think the guard from Utah has a chance to earn a slot on the opposite side. Maybe not this year, but in the next couple years. So they get a good amount of depth, but only really two day one starters. All right, now we move over to the South with the Atlanta Falcons. Everyone else is going to hate this draft. I definitely don't hate it. They got Michael Penix Jr. in the 1st round at pick 8. Everyone by surprise. Everyone hated it. I had him graded out as my QB3, so I'm honestly kind of for it. I understand, hey, Kirk Cousins contract, yes, it's a big one worth $100 million, whatever, but it's realistically just a 2-year contract, and then after that they can get rid of him without any losses. So I look at this as like a have Kirk lead us for 2 years, and unless he plays like Matt Ryan in his prime, we've got the quarterback of the future ready to go. Give Penix some time to adjust to the NFL game, and then let him get in there and tear it apart. The Rook Orohoro selection, I wasn't a big fan of that in the second. I think there were better D tackles on the board, and all of them went like right after him in the second. So a little bit of a reach, but if they feel like he's the best scheme fit for them, go for it. I love the Braylon Trice selection here out of Washington, the edge rusher. I think he's going to be an instant starter for them. He's going to come in, be there. He's more of an effort pass rusher. He's got good technique, I would say, but he doesn't have like the athletics that people typically call for. But if you need early production, I think having someone that has the technique and has the effort is going to be better than just having a guy who has the athletics. And they're kind of in win now mode, but they're also hedging their bets with Michael Penix Jr. for the future. Brandon Dorlus, I mean, he's going to get a decent amount of snaps this year. I'm not going to say he's a starter. He'll be a decent player for them, I would say. J.D. Bertrand, I'm not a big fan of the linebacker out of Notre Dame. Probably a special teams player if you're asking me. I cannot stand the fact that they drafted Jace McClellan. Not because I think Jace McClellan's a bad player. I just think like you've already got two running backs that are in their second or third year that are really good. Why are you drafting another running back? There's just no point. Casey Washington, I don't really see him having much of a role in this offense. And then Zion Logue, I feel like that's kind of just a Hail Mary, bringing a Georgia guy, see if he can compete and win a job. I think he's a practice squad player at best. Carolina Panthers, they trade up, bring in Xavier Legette in the first round out of South Carolina. South Carolina to Carolina, sounds like it's a good story. I'm not sold on Xavier. I think he can be good, but I think that they're looking at the potential more so than the immediate. I know he had a lot of like off the field issues, not like personality issues, just like things that happened that kept him from really showing out his first 4 years in college. So, a fifth-year breakout isn't necessarily as bad of a sign as it could be for other players. I'm just not sold on his fundamentals. I think he's got a long way to go. I like, the athleticism is there. I can understand taking him. I'm just not sold on him as a wide receiver one in an offense right now. Jonathan Brooks, I think it's a good pick. I had him as my running back 2 in this class. They took him a little early to me in the second round, but I understand they have a dearth of talent in Carolina. So if they can get skilled players, take them essentially, and I can 100% get behind that. He's recovering from an ACL injury, so he might not immediately be the starter. He's going to take him a little while to come back, but I would say by the end of the year, he's definitely their running back 1. Trevin Wallace, I think he'll be a contributor. I don't know if he's necessarily going to be an immediate starter, but I'll say he's at the very least a 2-down player to start his career. Jatavian Sanders, I think, is absolutely going to be their tight end 1 by the end of the year. Maybe tight end 2 to start. Comes in on passing downs, and then as he expands his role, I think he'll definitely be a game changer for them. The rest of the draft, I'm not really that sold on. The corner from Washington State doesn't excite me. The D tackle from Mississippi State, he's decent, but I'm not. I mean, 6th round pick. He's not going to be a world breaker. And then Michael Barrett out of Michigan. I can see them earning a spot on the roster. I just don't see them seeing much playing time this year. Moving on to the New Orleans Saints. I think they had a really good draft. I'll be honest. I don't think it's like the greatest on earth, but Tailifaga, I don't know how to say his name. It doesn't matter. The Oregon State tackle, I think that's a really good pick. They need help on the offensive line. A lot of their veterans are aging out and moving on, so that's a good plug and play player right there. Kool-Aid McKinstry, another great pick, corner out of Alabama. He's I had him at, I think, cornerback 4 on my list, so that's a great pickup in the second. Going to come in and immediately be a starter. The Spencer Rattler pick, I don't hate it, I just don't love it. The potential is there for the future. I just don't know if he'll actually actualize it. Bub Means, a good sleeper pick in the wide receiver in the 5th. He'll carve himself out a role on the team this year. Jalen Ford, the linebacker, I think that's a decent pick in the 5th. I had him higher than a lot of linebackers that were taken in the 4th, so picking him up, deep in the 5th, that's a good selection. Probably not a starter immediately, but special teams contributor and maybe eventual starter. Christian Boyd out of Northern Iowa was another player I had on my board. I think he'll definitely make the roster. Probably not a contributor year 1, but down the line he'll earn a spot. Don't have much on Eastern Kentucky tackle Josiah Ezram, but maybe he can earn a spot. I'm guessing practice squad at best, but pretty good. I'm not gonna say great draft, but they got a couple starters and then a lot of depth that might show out in the next couple of years. Now, for the Buccaneers, I actually really enjoy their draft. Graham Barton is, I'm really high on him. He's listed as a center. He might play center for the Bucs. I think he could also play guard anywhere on the interior. I think he could. He's a day 1 starter for them. They just have to figure out what spot they need him the most. Chris Braswell, I think, is also going to come in and immediately play for them. I don't think he's not going to be a world ender, but he's going to be a consistent run stopper, edge rusher. He's not going to generate much, but he'll pick up what is given to him. Tyke Smith, I think he'll probably come in and compete. No. They just signed the guy that left for them that went to the Jets. He came back, so he'll probably just be a situational player. Won't see the field that much. But Jalen McMillan, I 100% think is going to take over the slot for them. Well, Godwin might be the slot, but he'll be on 3 wide receiver sets. Jalen McMillan is 100% going to play. He's coming out of that Washington wide receiver core. I think that wide receiver core could end up having 3 NFL number 1 wide receivers on it. And then Bucky Irving in the 4th, another starting caliber player. Probably won't start immediately for them, but give them a year, I would say. As soon as it's time for Rachaad White to re-sign, I think Bucky Irving takes over. And then the other 2 players, I don't really expect to make the roster. Culp might make the roster, but I'm not sold. At best, I think they're practice squad players. All right, that is the end of the NFC. I'm going to go ahead and end this recording here, and I'll get this uploaded. And then next time, guys, I'll see you for the start of the AFC. Take it easy.